Greetings, everyone, and welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion, deep underground? Yes, you're going to be heading back to the Darklands today. The Darklands of Tian Xia. Learn all about the various nations and places that are deep underground, under the continent itself. Things hidden from the sight. Places in the shadow where maybe dangers, sometimes allies, dwell. If you're ready to brave the darkness, I'm your host and guide here, Dracovin, and I can open up a gateway, a portal through time-space, deep into the Darklands. But stay close to me while we are there. Those creatures there will eat you if you are not careful, and my protection only remains if you are close. So please take my hand. Please give you also a little bit of a tip before we leave, liking the video, subscribing, and letting people know in the comments below what you think. And your experience, perhaps, with the Darklands. Let's go. Tian Xia and the Darklands. Oh, wait. Deep, deep underground, we are heading today to learn of all the Darklands. There are two good sources about the Darklands of Tian Xia. Granted, these aren't all the Darklands. There's plenty of books that talk about that. But most of the point, Tian Xia World Guide is my best one, with a little bit of the Dragon Empire's Gazetteer. That one still is partially outdated. Again, the Gazetteer has some good information, but it is to a degree outdated with stuff that has been in the world now. Keep that in mind. Ready? Let's go. There are a number of nations below there. I'm gonna be talking about most of the major nations, but keep in mind that there are a lot of people that live in the Darklands. Brain oozes, cave giants, haunted clockworks, hobgoblins, micelords, oni, ratfolk, Sagothi, Zugloths, underworld dragons. Many beings make their home here, deep beneath the surface in the many caverns and tunnels that sometimes open into subterranean vaults or unknown ecosystems thousands of miles beneath the earth. This is the Darklands, a realm ignored by those that live on the surface, mainly because, for one good reason, it is incredibly hostile to anyone that does not live there. And humans, being notoriously poor at seeing the dark, and even without those limitations, have so many dangers there, there are a bit of profit for any humans to go down there. And likewise, a lot of the other beings that would go down there don't. Why do you think dwarfs went to the surface? They're like, no, we got enough of this place. This kind of sucks. Let's go to the surface. Again, divine thing there. But yeah, it's the Darklands. There's civilizations that are there, and sometimes they come to the surface. Dramatically, unfrequently, sometimes frequently, and effective. So keep that in mind. Underworld dragons claim massive, sprawling fiefdoms down there in the under. Oh, shoot. I'm going to reset that because I was not supposed to type that. Anyway, so underworld dragons claim sprawling fiefdoms underneath the surface. Issues on my end. And their machinations being most ambitious reaching the surface. Cao Shaoan lurks in the tunnels and the walls of heaven, with her maze of dripstones filled with flickering and dancing lambent lights. Zabudo rules a network of caves inhabited by blind amphibious oracles that meddle in the oracles of Po-Li on more than one occasion. And Joban basically has an inverted forest of stone trees from carefully carved stalactites. Basically, and she makes a habit of forging alliances and starting wars, basically in nations of schema, in equal measure. So there are three zones. Narvoth, the closest layer to the surface. 3 layers, I should say. Schema, the middle layer where most civilizations in the Darklands build. And Orv, the deep and mysterious layer towards the center of the planet that is perhaps the most unusual and most hostile. Many openings in the earth do not reach far enough down to even get contact with Schema. Maybe a little bit in the Narvoth, or just don't connect to the Darklands by virtue. And there are multitudes of entrances, though, in the world in Tian Xia, scattered across it. The most well-known entrances are Mount Kumijinja, an extinct volcano in northern Minkai, that has the Ghost Path in its caldera that goes straight down into Schema. The Clicking Caverns, which borders Zahoi and Nagajor, where haunted clockwork erupt constantly from to try to murder the neighbors on the surface. And then Jinin, which protects the entrance to the Darkland that the elves of Jinin emerged from millennia ago. Let's talk about the Deepmarket. Located beneath Goka, even their undermarket is the Deepmarket, which is an unworked caverns that host shadowy community of ratfolk, lignes, wayans, zoogloths, and more. It's not deep enough to reach the upper layers of Narvoth. It is too deep underground to be considered anything part of the Darklands. So it's kind of technically not quite in Narvoth. It's kind of on the surface of that, but it's still Darklands. It's still down there. The path between the undermarket and Deepmarket is long, hard, but stable, making it one of the primary trading points between the underground and surface communities. A savvy smuggler uses it as a convenient stash for contraband that's too risky even for undermarket, and you don't want to tarnish your reputation. For the vast majority of goods that are exchanged in the Deepmarket are mundane: clay pots, fine cloth, steel swords, gems, raw ore, scavenger artifacts, food being a major import, pickled vegetables, dried noodles, prime cuts of meat. Undermarket generally has less demand for Darkland cuisine, though, so the Deepmarket snake and scorpion wines have been really the only thing that's had some popularity going up towards the surface. So, you want some snake and scorpion wine? Thumbs up! Let's talk about... That is the wrong order. Don't know why. We'll talk about, we can move on to that. Oh, no, that's the correct one. Yeah, Pan Majang. Whoops, I said that. I'm just forgetting names. Don't mind me. It's been a week. Woo! Pan Majang, source of the Clicking Caverns. Basically, it's the ever-shifting metropolis that's below the Clicking Caverns, and it's in Schema Deep, below Nagajor and Zahoy. There was a forgotten civilization here. It's perished completely. But the spirits of the dead of that civilization linger malevolently and basically possess the constructs, the ticking clockwork, that used to serve Pan Majang. That is where the clicking caverns and the haunted clockworks come from. They are literally haunted clockworks from the ghosts of the people of Pan Majang. And when they lived, these clockworks, served these souls. Now they embody them. They're flesh-eating monsters that chronically attack the neighboring nations. In 2105 IC, they poured out of the Clicking Caverns and began their battle. And in 7208, the Nagaji hero, Zephyratus Djid, led a ill-advised expedition down to the caverns, tried to end the threat to the homeland, and only returned in the form of the haunted clockwork himself, and led an invasions of the highland of western Zahoy. Yeah, it went badly, and he became the same monsters he went to defeat. Pan Majang is impossible to map. If you're brave enough to find it and return alive, the city is itself clockwork, just as much as the beings that now inhabit it are. It shifts on whims and rhymes of unknown whoever. A necropolis that moves on its own, that actually can shift around in various caverns, making it hard to pin down. It's theorized that perhaps the buildings are even possessed by some of the ghosts, just like the smaller clockwork that are there. What rulers are at the head of Pan Majang? Well, it's sure that they are neither undead nor clockwork, but something that is a little bit of both. A haunted clockwork. Their existence is only known due to the scouts and eavesdroppers, who've learned of these rulers, but no one knows what this shadowy council is, and, well, at least has returned wearing flesh. Both scholars of Nagajor and Zahoy basically want to placate these beings and put them to rest, but it's really difficult, especially when these cursed entities are so keen on capturing skilled agents and reforging them into serving the Clicking City. Yeah, so if you're very skilled and great, they'll bring you down there and make you into another one of them to serve them and their horrific shadowy council of leaders. Congratulations, you have been assimilated. Shirogoku is a spiral city that lies beneath northern Minkai and the Forest of Spirits. The rulers of it are the Pallid Oni. and they make their realm a mockery of the kami above in the forest of spirits, performing unsettling rituals on themselves and unwilling victims. These are not creatures of vengeance and appetite like the other onis of the surface. They are driven to act in service of some greater purpose. Survivors of their rites describe constant nightmares of spiraling downward, and usually die early deaths from stress and lack of sleep. So if you manage to survive the ritual, it's still not good. It's still not good. It's still pretty terrible. Let's talk about Orv. And this is just an image of Orv, but it isn't the Tian Xia Orv. There really isn't good images of that, because again, it's, as much as there's areas of Orv, the deepest layer of the Darklands that have been explored, Tian Xia's ones really haven't. This is so dangerous. Constant perils, and only a few have even tried to get down and return to the surface. And if you got your stories, is it from being a braggart or a drunkard? One scholar, Tsukio, claims to have discovered in the midnight depths a three-headed giant who spoke of a ruined home destroyed by an undead sun. Others tell of an oceans of sentient oil, bubbling mindseed to parasitic creatures within their perfumed depths, portals that clip off infested regions of the outer rifts, unfathomable anti-living beings that crawl out of the void. Yeah, take your pick. Orv is awful. You can go see my, basically, Darklands Overvote You video if you want to learn more about Orv, too. But there are things there, horrors there, deep down there in the spheres and the realms of Orv, that have not been explored, for they are so dangerous and so dead. Okay. Let's talk about Digou-Dashu. This is an interesting one because this is a major nation deep under the ground. In 1251 IC, Ratfolk, Usoki, spilled forth from Skina and tried to conquer Imperial Longhua. They invaded a dozen cities before the mobilized might of Longhua forced them back, forcing them to retreat to the tunnels of the Darkland. Hao Jin, legendary, basically seeking to bloodlessly end the conflict for good, severed the entire sphere of Earth with the army occupied in it and sealed it in her personal demiplane. So yeah, she basically was like, as the army's been driven back to the Darklands, they're still like on their edge. She's just like, I'm just going to scoop up this army and put it over here. You're gone. Don't have to worry about you. Thumbs up. The threat was gone, but the nation that spawned it, Digou-Dashu, remains. It's the Empire of Rahk. But the thing is, Digou-Dashu is kind of chaotic. It doesn't have one name, truly. The force that invaded Longhua was basically their big unifying effort in history. Their largest in history. That the entire group of all these Yusoki came together. But that loss of that army has basically broken them apart. And it took them over a century to get some kind of stability after the loss of the army. And any kind of organization. So now it's a sprawling group of warring families who survive due to their size, resourcefulness, and by reluctantly favoring each other over other civilizations in the Darklands. So as much as they compete with each other, I don't like you over there less. It's a civilization that never sleeps. There's no sun, no stars, no way to track the days, no way to mark hours. So you retire when you're tired, you wake when you wake. There's no schedule. It works well enough for the Yusoki. Ensures that someone's always alert whenever danger or opportunity presents itself. Timekeeping is chaotic. Each family has their own method of keeping track of it. Sometimes you can sync with historic events, but comparing major events, but yeah, with those records tending to be rare, as a lot of oral traditions and stories are very important in their culture, it does mean that it kind of can be very hard to tell differences there, too. Oftentimes, vast genealogies and critical information is only in the heads of local elders, which may have great minds for it, and others, not so much good memories. So, and they might argue over their tale, which one's the correct one in the history. And, long story short, whoever's loudest wins then that argument. Citizens do have a strong sense of community values, and provide an roughly even distribution of necessities among them. So, it means that whenever there's work to be done, someone will do it. As to do otherwise risks everyone going hungry. So if you see something that needs to be done, you do it. Oh, that needs to be harvested over there? My job now. For today. If not, I'm going to go hungry. Someone else will. In times of plenty, they actually don't really go out and risk the Darklands. They stay to their cities and their civilization. They entertain themselves with stories and games. Gambling, very, very popular. And again, the community will bail out anybody who ends up really in bad shape. Repeatedly. Basically, surviving against community is a community effort. And the Isoki here do by scavenging, stealing, and hunting for whatever they get their hands on. There's some farming with Darkland mushrooms, or pulling a blind fish out of the underground lakes, but every citizen's an opportunist. A very heavy meat diet with giant bats and massive whip spiders, popular meats. They are notorious for eating anything that won't outright poison them. They'll eat myxoloids, suguthi, or even dragon steak without blinking an eye. The shrug off objections to this practice is pointless pearl clutching. But they aren't immune to, concerns about angry ghosts arise from being denied proper burial. As such, Lao Shu Po work hard to perform religious rituals, symbolically sending unquiet spirits to the old rat women to eat so she doesn't bother her faithful children. So they basically do religious things. So they eat whatever they get their hands on. Yes, but again, they'll do religious things to appease any spirits. Workers are capable of making the tools with their businesses, but due to the conditions down here, textiles are the most of the challenge. Fur plate or chitin armor chitin that's been fashioned armor is pretty common, and finest clothes are either stolen or traded from the surface, passed down oftentimes for generations. There's an industry for cloth repair, and some of the finest of Tianjin's artisans when it comes to this kind of thing are in Digou-Dashu. A master tailor in this country can repair a torn garment to perfection with nothing but a needle and spare threads. Wealth is represented by the gems mined down here, and many wear and create necklaces and bracelets and jewelry based on precious stones they find. Be damned the color scheme. It's whatever they get. Family is an important part about them. Exceptions of family loyalty can be crushing, though. Expectations. On the flip side, there's nothing a Isoki can do that can cause a family to abandon them. This can be unfortunate if they lose their own kin. For those unfortunate enough to lose their own kin, they can find another family willing to take them in, and an adopted family member is considered just the same as blood ties. This has virtues and vices, and it does help, and you have a network of support, but the thing is, there's no socially acceptable means to part with a very terrible member of your family, which can end up in feuds between families as people choose loyalty to kin over justice and de-escalation. Yeah, it's sort of like families first, but if your guy over there is a total asshole, can't do much about it. And that can lead to grudges that last centuries. This family is why they refer to as Lo Shu Po as their ancestor, not patron goddess. Basically, Lo Shu Po has some very certain things they want to avoid being associated with their deity with, so they're like, and being targeted by the goddess's detractors. So instead they're like, the old rat woman is the god in deed, not in word. Basically, they're like, she's all good. She's all good here. Don't worry about it. She's an old family member. We're big on family. Yeah, we know she does some things that we really don't agree with, but she's family. She's our ancestor. You gotta give her some props for that. Just saying. Basically, the rat folks survive and rise above what life has handed them with whatever means are needed, without being weighed down by shame, by the privileged or the bitter. So, survivors' guilt or experiencing pains of unwelcome conscience will be basically soothed by her clergy. Her doctrine does appeal to the selfish, but conditions in Sakuma mean that the Isoki are tormented simply by surviving when their loved ones didn't. So, yeah. Lo Shu Po tells those people they were right to live, and that she's beloved among the nation of survivors. There is a ruler to this nation. There actually is. Guyuksa. She's in the seat of power from its capital, Hunyo. In reality, though, no one follows the laws or mandate of the government. It's all local. All local. and regulations and conditions determined solely by the influence of the families in the area. Gyuxa doesn't mind this. This is the way the nation worked before she became in charge, and it will be that way after it passes on. So she keeps her own interest and power in mind, keeps the ear to the ground of everything that might help the kingdom or her as a whole, and she's been intrigued by rumors of the Round Mountain. Hey, Hao Jin returned everything from her demi-plane. It's a big sphere of Earth that Hao Jin stole that had the old army, and now it's back in Tian Xia. Scouts have claimed the descendants of that army are still living there. And these groups have been separated for a long time, but distant family is still family. So they're basically making journeys to try to kind of connect up with these Yusoki, and also gain information on various things that could be a danger to them. Pathfinder Society, Absolute Consortium, Hao Jin herself. And so, yeah, agents are being sent up, and if they find a little opportunity along the way, hey, we don't have to go back for a second trip. I get everything done, and then I come back home. Rahk Lo. Here's an interesting one. It's a hobgoblin nation deep beneath Tian Xia, and it has persisted for well over a century. There's basically, its existence has only been more than rumor recently, where General Arazetti, the founder of the hobgoblin nation of Oprek in Avestan, basically sent explorers to make contact with Kowlin, which is an alliance, the two hobgoblin nations. She used the Onyx Key to travel from the plane of Earth to do this, and ended up not in Kowling, but somewhere into a second hobgoblin nation in Narvath, Rahk Lo. Whoops. So yeah, basically now these three nations have connected together, with Rahk Lo finally emerging onto the surface and being like, oh hey, surface, nice to meet you, getting tunnels up between that and Kowling and having the connections now to Oprak. So this contact hasn't just had problems, because the hobgoblins of Rahk Lo haven't really competed with humanity or other surface people for well over a century. And so they're more interested in allies to help them survive, basically, in Narvath, rather than nationalism or conquest, like a lot of other hobgoblins think. They're very welcoming towards non-hobgoblins, which has led both the other two nations basically kind of at an odd point where to deal with their kin. And also surprised a lot of Tian nations that are used to Kowlin's expansionistic threat. These guys are like, oh, hey, yeah, no, we're okay, we're chill. So, Arazetti has managed to lure the hobgoblins of Rahk Lo into helping her scout and explore the plane of Earth. And basically, she also wants to kind of get some clockwork and some of the monstrosities from the Darklands, basically help her out too. Things that they're kind of disinterested in, and they're like, oh, no, can you get some of that? We're interested in it. So there are still ordered tendencies of hobgoblins, like the surface ones. Even more sometimes than their kin on the surface. But directed differently. With no sun and moon, timekeeping is a national obsession. Avery City Town Square has a water clock, and official government bell watchers that constantly make rounds to ring the hours and ensure the public timepieces are kept running. Candlers scrupulously script tallow candles that burn for an hour and not a second longer. Despite these exact measurements, Rahk Lo years are extremely erratic, to the dismay of other hobgoblins. They start their new year in spring when runoff from Ziha, melting snowpacks cause the underground Dugzi River to reach a specific water marker, which can occur at different times of the year on the surface depending on weather conditions. It does mean that the years can be matched to surface dates, but again, the years have different amount of days in them, basically. So it causes some annoyance with the historians of Kowlin, basically, because it's not an exact year sometimes. But again, you can kind of match it up. They're obsessed with alchemy down there. The Darklands don't really have crops or wild game, but they have a lot of alchemical reagents. So an army of farmer alchemists have used their abundance of one resource to fix the problem with another. Bottled sunlight, alchemical fertilizers allow plants to grow senselessly in sandy caverns. Pheromones and other concoctions attract and tame giant bats and centipedes to serve as guards and mounts for them. They are exceedingly generous with their knowledge, too, of the people of Rahk Lo, sharing their methods to others to better the lives of everyone in the Darklands. They see no advantage in living one disaster away from starvation, even if it means feeding potential enemies. So a lot of their survival methods, they will share with you. This friendliness means that non-Hobgoblin citizens have joined of their own volition. Unlike Cowling, they're loyal to the nation of their own free will. Non-Hobgoblins who want to join Rahk Lo are given a probationary period of 3 years. They're expected to work as a normal citizen. If they perform their tasks and still want to stay after this period, they're granted full rights and accepted without further comment. This equality and relative prosperity offered in Rahk Lo is enough to ensure most immigrants approach the nation with good intentions. If you seek to infiltrate it for nefarious purposes, you will discover that they can be just as brutal as their surface kin. They don't tolerate any threat to its people or its survival, and traitors will have a miserable half-existence until every useful secret has been pulled from them. So yeah. So they have expansionist tendencies like their surface cousins, but they direct this energy towards exploration rather than conquest. Resources, information, and allies are far more useful than overextending your territory that is very costly to hold. And expanding list of threats to their nation by making enemies. Hey, they already have problems enough living down here. They do have thorough knowledge of the tunnels of Narvoth that surround their nations. And they've never found Darkland tunnels that reside under nearby Jinin, which is an interest in searching. They also seek to investigate Tsukima and possibly break into the mythical depths of Orov. Scouts have made contact with Gojumun, the ancient underworld dragon with the inverted stone forest. As they weren't eaten outright, they consider this dragon to be reasonably friendly and want to kind of negotiate some kind of deal with it. Darkness is ample. So much of Rahk Lo's culture focuses on substances other than sight. Alchemical toys and fireworks are popular when available, and most alchemical components are reserved for critical work of survival. But most are for survival. Basically, if you got a few extra alchemical things that aren't overflow, you can do it for something a little fun. The stone walls and buildings actually are inlaid with metal and carved patterns that are pleasant to touch, so you run your hand along them. Extra attention is paid to clothing. Tailoring combines silky fabrics, twirling embroidery, smooth leather, and comfortable outfits. With a lack of color, the fashion is asymmetrical, adding to personal flair and pragmatic outfits. Scent is also important, and sound. Constantly dripping water clocks are designed to play musical tones. Perfume candles and incense are considered luxuries among Rahk Lo's hobgoblins. The sharp and earthly orders that are common in the Darklands have proven unpopular on the surface. Its prosperity comes to its organized nature and rigid social roles. Children learn via working as assistants for adults. Adults are assigned to specific roles within the society, be it soldier, farmer, or miner. In times of abundance, personal preference might be taken into account, but most often residents are assigned what a role needs extra hands. Basically, it's like, look man, we need this to survive, you gotta take this job. That's it. If it's a really great time of it, we're all abundant, there's no extra jobs needed, hey, you get to choose. It's a good time. If it's not, hey. So there's little chance to change a role once been assigned unless they're needed elsewhere, though, and hobgoblins really need to quash dissonance. After all, if a person doesn't like their lot in life where they work, you can go leave. Enjoy the Darklands! So most citizens quickly find they prefer dull security in Rahk Lo to starving out in the Darklands. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, I could starve out there, or I could just keep my job, which I don't really like, but it's fine, and everything seems okay here. The leader is General Yalzu. Their goal is the same as any of their predecessors. Organization, survival, information gathering. They have an assortment of workers who mine and forage in the Darklands, and a small fighting force trained to deal with threats of the underground. Unlike Kowlin, they don't specifically prepare for to fight neighboring cities. They focus entirely on defense. While both Sun Cha and Arazedi, the two other leaders, consider the general to be overly trusting, Yalzu's generous nature is a product of the environment. In the Darklands, the most dangerous threats use very little in the way of guile. Even the foulest of infernal treachery often fails in comparison to the creatures that lurk in the darkness. Keep that in mind. There are a few other places we can talk about that we have some information on. Zaikangon, a realm underneath the Valshivi jungle ruled by Sugathi, brain oozes, and other monsters. There is, of course, the Caverns of the Wall of Heavens with giant cave giants, Zugloths, and horrors of the Plateau of Lang. Those are all in Schema. the various regions where Myxloids exist in the area of Narva. And of course, we kind of mentioned Orc. It's not that there aren't other areas, it's just these are the areas that we know the most about, the big nations, and a few of the other areas we kind of know about. But there you go. There's the Darklands under Tian Xia. A very interesting place with massive countries and nations and places that exist still to this day and have their own unique cultures and way of doing. Most of them we don't have enough information, but I could have really gone videos on themselves, so it was fun to kind of combine all of them together here too. And maybe one day there will be adventures or things that will deal with some of these places. Certainly when we talk about places like the Clicking City, and Majang, fascinating place. The Oni of Shirogoku, the Rat Folk of Digou-Dashu, and of course the Hobgoblins of Rahk Lo. Each of them have their own unique culture. Certainly with Rahk Lo, you will probably make peaceful contact. If you're traveling that way, you make peaceful contact, you probably could. If you are generally just visiting and nice and making some trade, they probably will welcome you. Digou-Dashu depends on your family, like Soki. Shirogoku, you're probably going to be part of a horrible ritual, and Majang, that's death. It's death itself. So you can see the different places there. Deepmarket, these are fascinating places that reflect a different culture and way of thinking. I think the best example of this is indeed Rahk Lo, where you can see that the hobgoblins there have a lot of the way that hobgoblins act on the surface, but they are different. They have generally taken all their, ways of doing things, their instincts and stuff, and channeled them in ways to allow their survival in this place. It's a fascinating thing that makes them one of the more interesting cultures deep down under the earth. And a lot of these places are just so very interesting. Certainly speaking, an adventure dealing with the threat of Majang would be awesome. Possibly. Get rid of the clicking horrors, the haunted constructs as a threat in that region. There's plenty of stories to tell. And I hope you've enjoyed seeing this little bit of a tour of the Darklands of Tian Xia and getting a hold of them and seeing where some of these stories contain. But that'll be it for today. I hope you have enjoyed diving into this. Remember to check out all of my stuff, whether it's over when I'm live on Twitch, when I record a lot of my tabletop stuff, or on YouTube, where I upload all my tabletop-related cold cuts. This is things like live plays, like All of Amneswell, which is streamed and recorded Wednesdays at 8 on Twitch and ends up on there. Any of my other live plays that are archived, discussing tabletop Saturdays at 6, if you want to catch it live, also goes up on there. All these things, that's a kind of talk showy, kind of almost podcasty thing, maybe make a back and podcast for the fourth time. All tabletop stuff gets uploaded on YouTube though, so make sure to check it out there. And if you're on YouTube, hey, subscribe. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments. Make sure to check out my social medias for updates on schedule, what's going on, when things are being uploaded, all those kind of things. And of course, thank you. I'm going to get going. Until the next time, we hang out, talk about more things, visit Tian Xia or another continent, another nation. I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.